And we're back. It's about 60 minutes, and with us is Dr. Oby Ezekwesili. She's the presidential candidate of the ACPN, and she's feeding your questions, answering them as it is. And I'll go straight with the first one that I can see here. It says, it's from Richie Solomon Udo. Her statement on gay indicts her already. Her belief system has never and will never accept such in Nigeria. As a Christian that she is, her faith is questionable. Well, apparently you have no question there, but for your own knowledge, she has addressed this issue initially, and she said that what she said was misconstrued and taken out of context. Madam, would you like to throw any light on this?
Well, you know, the basic constitutional right of every Nigerian is available to you regardless of what you practice, who you know, where you're from, what knowledge, what religion, and all of that. So that constitutional right is a given, and that's something that we will uphold.
Gay rights is an entirely different set of rights that people who are gay are pushing all over the world. We are not. We don't have anything on that. We will not do anything on gay rights that contradicts our constitution. And you know, my personal belief and my value system as one who is a part of a very strong Bible-believing church is guided by the provisions of my faith. That's different. That's my personal thing. But as president of Nigeria, that protection that every Nigerian is entitled to in terms of their fundamental human rights, what I am establishing is that that is available to everybody. But I didn't say anything about gay rights. And so the gentleman who is saying that, you know, he needs to go to my handle, go to @Oby Ezekwesili on Twitter and see the response that I gave to those who distorted what I said at Chatham House.
Let's come back to the Nigerian economy, which you have said in the first part that it's in a crisis situation, and if care is not taken, at the snap of a finger, we are at the breaking point. If we're not careful, we're at that point. Okay, so according to the NBS, Nigeria's population increases annually by about 3%, give or take. That's about 6 million newborns, and 6 million like the size of Liberia. So we practically take Liberia out to Nigeria every year. Now, give or take, what is your plan, your strategy as president to transform this population into a sustainable asset?
So you're right on the money, because the kernel of our new direction is a direction away from this obsession with oil. If oil would have developed Nigeria, it would have long happened. We have earned anything close or above $1 trillion in oil since it was discovered in Oloibiri in Bayelsa State. But we're not the better for it. So we've been a classic case of the Dutch disease syndrome, you know, where every other thing goes to blazes just on the back of oil. And oil becomes the magnet for a certain quality of political class that has no incentive to do anything that moves toward building a nation on the basis of those quality of thoughts and ideas of the kind that I was saying you found in Singapore, you found in China. So my new direction is that oil will recede to the background as the heartbeat of what we do as a people. And instead, I am saying that education will be the new oil, and that human capital will be the new economy.
How will this work?
So what it means is that human development is the driver of our economic agenda. Our economic vision is built around human development. And human development is really about you know, everything that concerns knowledge and skills and well-being of the people and their resilience and their adaptive capacities. So the focus on education, making education something that is of equal opportunity, so that the quality of education, the relevance of education, the skills that education would hand over to anybody. It wouldn't matter whether your dad is you know, a carpenter or anything. You must be as entitled to a certain minimum quality and relevance of education. And we're going to focus very much on skills, because, you know, countries that have done well have been countries that looked at skills as being solutions, right? That the private that business requires. So innovation enterprise institutions, vocational enterprise institutions, we have an initiative in our manifesto that is GAS. GAS, G-A-S, says get a skill. So it doesn't matter who you are. For as long as our education system functions well, what we want to make sure is that you have a skill. You have a skill. By having a skill that responds to market needs, there would always be opportunity for you to be the economic driver of the process of development. So, and then health. A lot of the times, you know, people have a tendency, they say, how are you doing? I just have malaria, ordinary malaria. But, you know, malaria costs the continent 2% of its GDP annually. So things like that matter for economy. Everything that's got to do with health matters for economy. You need to have your people in top health. And so for health, we have reforms that look at the health system. And, you know, looking at the health system in terms of the medical personnel and the attraction and retention of quality healthcare personnel, and ensuring that that different segments of the population have access to health, primary health care, secondary health care, and the interface with tertiary health care, that is the specialized health systems. Now, the poor easily don't get access to those services of health. So we're looking at how the financing of health would focus on the National Health Insurance Scheme and the universalizing of access to those kinds of financing systems on a pooling arrangement, which is why it is an insurance system, right? So we design it with a mind that issues of maternal mortality, child mortality, infant mortality, the stunting that affects children because of poor nutrition, these are all health issues related to economy issues. So by the time you have a good reform in education, where the quality of teachers, the substance and content of curriculum, the kind of link between the marketplace and the knowledge that is being given, everything that's got to do with instructional materials and the focus on learning outcomes, quality assurance in education, looking at the adoption of technology into education. By the time you combine the reforms in education with the reforms in health for access, and then you do things that have to do with the environment, water, sanitation, what would happen is that the Nigerian person that comes out through your policy is a person ready with ideas. And then what we do in improving the business environment, the business climate, so that the doing business is no longer a hassle. Now, we would target a lot of those reforms to the different segments in the marketplace. So there are big companies, they are not going to be the only ones that we want to do things so that they can come to Nigeria. No, because some 60 to 75% of wealth is often created by micro, small, medium-scale enterprises in places like Singapore or even China and even the United States. So we need to, focus market-friendly reforms that would enable our businesses at whatever category they operate to enhance their productivity. One of the things that I said in an earlier program was that a young woman who is a farmer was asking me, what is it that my administration would mean for her? And I said, if she read the manifesto at oby2019.com, she would find that we addressed the issue of productivity in agriculture, and especially as it affects women. One of the studies that we did when I was still at the World Bank showed that in Osun State, by just giving women farmers the similar inputs as what their male counterparts were getting, they outperformed their male counterparts by 40%. And we know that most women are caught in subsistence farming. And we also know that when you enhance the income of the woman, that 70% of her income goes toward things that affect the children. So a woman who earns more is a woman who guarantees the country that the daughter or the son will go to school. She will take care of the needs of school and health for her. So it's so interconnected.
Okay. We'll take a question from Lekon now. He says, You have a huge battle on your hands, contesting against people who have all the money and all the structures. How are you going to battle them?
By not doing the things that they do. I can't beat them in their own game. So I have to create my own path. And my own part is basically to say that today's politics is not the entrenched, decadent, politically, what do you call it? Politically, I'm trying to find a word that is not going to hit at these people so badly. But the meaning of what I'm saying is that the old way of politics followed a certain pattern. They were solving a structural problem. Yeah, but the new way of politics is a distribution problem. It's about the fact that we're saying there's a new direction that we all must embrace. We're saying that if the Nigerian people, in any Nigerian person who is fed up with the existing paradigm of politics, is looking for something different. And so how do we get to the place where they get the message of that thing, and they are persuaded by the fact that the person who has that message has the track record to be able to deliver on it. And so distributing that message is what matters to us. So we are using knowledge. We're using a combination of knowledge, data, technology, existing social networks and new social networks to deliver. It's like a network marketing, right? Where do you see any big shop of the Avon lady? No. But the product is what? Everywhere. Mega $1 billion of products being sold, right? So there is a message for a new Nigeria where, you know, you receive that message, you agree with that message, your tool is your PVC. And on the day that that message is supposed to make you do certain things, you become the human body. That's all the way to the polling unit. We have a strategy. It is an entirely different strategy from the entrenched, let's gather the people together and pay them off 2,000 and pay transportation for them. It's so undignifying of the people. We have another layer of our strategy which focuses on the grassroots. And the party that I am running on their ticket is a party that contested in the 2011 elections, and then in 2015 it fielded a presidential candidate who was number 4 in that election. So it's not an entirely new, we're on the new kid on the block kind of party. So there are tentacles within that local place. But the messaging that we're taking to them is not a messaging of come and take 2,000 or come and take 4,000. And we're doing it in the kind of way that it links to legacy issues that they must address. The active engagement of the people in determining the future direction that they want to see their children go. All those things matter. And our strategy is we already see evidence of how we are making inroads. Do you know the people who are most excited about our candidacy? Those ones who said, I am not voting in 2019 because the only people that I see, they are asking me to come and choose the lesser of two evils. I am not choosing no lesser of two evils because evil, the lowest common denominator of evil is, even if the evils are 2, is evil, right? So anybody who is saying I'm choosing lesser of 2 evils, you're choosing evil. And why should you choose evil in a democracy that offers you a credible candidate? So those 67 million Nigerians registered to vote in 2015, only 28 million combined voted. 13 million for former President Jonathan, 15 million for the current president. And so nearly 40 million stayed away. When we did some analytics around it, you could see that the ones who stayed away were mostly the Nigerians within the middle class. And why did majority of them stay away? They just, they looked at it and they said, no, I see no candidate for me. There's no candidate that reflects why I should wake up and go to vote. Those people are the ones now awakening and saying, I have a candidate. Oby Ezekwesili is running. I'm backing Oby Ezekwesili. And then, you know what they say to me? I am getting 100 other people to join me to vote for you. So we are a decentralized campaign. That's what network marketing is all about.
Just before we go on the second break, I would ask you this. Fight for Nigeria. You've made that phrase popular.
Yes.
What should it mean to Mama Emeka, who sells plantain whose husband died fighting Boko Haram.
I can imagine.
What does it mean to a first-time voter, Femi, who is out of school, or who is still in school or out of school, doesn't have a job? What should it mean to Mr. Jubril, who is a pensioner, who needs to beg to feed? Fight for Nigeria.
So fight for Nigeria means fight for yourself from whatever perspective Nigeria has failed you so far. So a young person fights for Nigeria because every year 3 to 4 million of his kind join the labor market. Only 10% of them would find what the International Labour Organization defines as decent job. Now, if that is the case, he probably is one of those other 3-point-something million that would not find. So fight for Nigeria means fight for the election of someone who's got the track record of having solved problems and who's got the ideas that would build a different Nigeria. So when you fight for Nigeria, you're looking at my manifesto and saying, hey, look at the kinds of thoughts that this woman's got here. The economic philosophy around which she is going to govern Nigeria, I can see myself in it, because the more that private sector is driving economic growth, the more the opportunities for jobs will happen. So when I pick my PVC, when I tell my friends to join me, to vote in a different mindset into government, I have fought for Nigeria, and in the process I've fought for myself. For Mama Emeka, you know, she looks at it and she says, this is the candidate that's saying that the primacy of the Nigerian life matters. Because the only reason that I would care about human development as the epicenter of my economic vision is because I want the people to be alive. If your people are not alive, how are you going to translate them from mere human beings to human capital, or that is of world class? So keeping them alive is important. So it means that everything about security sector reforms and broadening it to be human security, not just the militaristic security and the intelligence gathering that prevents opportunities for the kinds of recklessness in the killings of our people that we've seen so far, but also just looking at what research has shown, that the more you can have private sector create opportunities for jobs and more jobs, the less that you have a pipeline of young people who are hopeless and willing to inflict pain on their society. So you reduce issues of security, conflict, and all of that. When you are growing, prosperity is an antidote to the kind of destabilization that we have seen in the country. So Mama Emeka knows that, oh, wait a minute, this woman puts the human life, the dignity of the Nigerian life at the top. Now, this woman also says that for subsistence farmers, for women in trade and in low productivity, informal sector, she's going to do certain kinds of reforms that would incentivize them to create structure around what they do, so that they can access some of the supports policies, whether it's access to finance, or it's access to knowledge and technology, or it's access to market. She has thought of it in a way that would enhance Mama Emeka's productivity. So if in a day what she did was that she roasted only a bunch of plantain, by the way that we're going to work, the productivity in the agriculture sector would enable her have not one bunch of plantain, but 2 bunches of plantain. The way that we're going to work would make her have the kind of renewable option cooker that enables her to do the roasting of her plantain in a more swag, swag-like manner. So the people who looked at her plantain and said too much coal and too much, issues of climatic pollution and all of that, and don't go near it, and health issues, they're going to look at Mama Emeka in a different kind of setting. She moves from informal low productivity to somebody with some level of structure. Once she does that, you know what happens? Her income increases.
We'll pause your thoughts there. We'll go on a short break now. When we come back, she will tell us what it means to the pensioner, Per Jubril. Then after that, we move on to other sectors. Thank you very much. Hold on. We'll be right back.
Hello everyone, this is Bam Bam.
And Teddy.
Download Bounce News app. Your news,
your edge.